The Brooklyn Nets, who all kinds of weird just going on there, just all kinds of weird. James Harden will not be traded this season. If he does get moved, it'll be over the offseason. So I don't know that we need to tackle that, but buy, sell, or hold, obvious answer, not so obvious in terms of what can they actually do about that.
Well, the obvious answer to me is hold, because they just like, what are they going to do? So you just go down the line and they have the three extremely expensive contracts and like not a lot else, unless you're going to move Joe Harris. He's your only guy between like 6 million and 35 million that's on the roster. He makes 17 this year. But he's hurt anyway. So I'm holding. This is another team. I think you mentioned it with Atlanta to some extent. Like, isn't the idea just that like if we have all our guys, we're fine, and they just need to be able to have all their guys, and they haven't. I mean, that's been the case. I mean, for years now, they haven't had all three of those guys healthy for any stretch and on the floor, and that may not change if Irving's vaccination status doesn't change, but. I just see them again as like, it's a cop out, but like they're a team that if they do anything, it's going to be on the buyout market. Their tax bill's through the roof. If you do anything, I guess you look at moving Nick Claxton, but like who replaces what he does for them? He hasn't blown the doors off, but there aren't a lot of like.
He might be the most switchable big in the league.
Like they don't have a guy. If they trade him, and it's not like you're going to get a bunch of salary back for him, because I'm looking at my salary sheets here. What's he even make this year? He's like 1. a minimum guy. He's 1.7.
Yeah.
So and then if you trade for him, you're thinking about his restricted free agency and the next contract you're going to pay him. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this team. I kind of am with what I think and assume they believe is that once we're healthy with this roster, I think we're okay. But that's also just an admission that like there's not a lot that they can really do because they don't have a lot of trade assets that they're actually going to think about trading.
And they don't seem willing to take on more money because they're so deep into the tax. And they do have like $6.7 million in a trade exception from DeAndre Jordan, 6.3 million that they could look at using. And it does expire in August, so they could still use it over the offseason. But that would be an avenue they could explore if they wanted to. I'm with you. They're not moving their 4 highest paid players just because I don't even know what Joe Harris's value would be. And I still think when he's healthy, he is just so important to complementing your stars. Patty Mills has been great. You can't look at moving him. Javon Carter would be my most likely to get moved guy just because it seems like his playing time has been wildly inconsistent. He has not, replicated what he did during that bubble run with Phoenix. In either of the past 2 seasons. He can be a defensive bulldog. Maybe you can pay a team to take on his, $3.7 million this year and then 3.9 next year. I think that's probably the move they're going to make. Even Bruce Brown Jr., he's so important to how they're going to have to defend in the playoffs at this point. He also has that implicit no trade clause. You're not moving Cameron Thomas or even Day'Ron Sharp when they're so early into their rookie scales, unless it's part of a bigger deal. I don't even think you shop Claxton. Just like you said, he's so cheap. And yes, he's going into restricted free agency, hasn't been able to remain healthy. You match. Look at the teams that have cap space. What is it? Detroit, San Antonio, and who's the other one? There's one other one that's definitely going to have cap space. It could be Memphis, OKC, probably. So,
oh, yeah.
Which teams are any of those teams coming with an offer sheet that you can't even imagine? And at that point, if it's mid-level-ish type money, you could just match it and then move him later. Or maybe you broker a sign and trade, in which case he becomes more valuable to use that larger salary. It's just, what is your stomach for doing anything? So it might be hold until the buyout market by virtue of them not being able to do anything else. It would not shock me if they're trying to move Javon Carter. And if they're willing, they could, if Bruce Brown Jr. is willing to go to a different team, like they could step ladder. They need wings. Like they have Kevin Durant, DeAndre Bembry, and Bruce Brown. And you can't play DeAndre Bembry and Bruce Brown together and hope to have a good team for extended stretches. That's what I'd be looking at if I were them. They don't have like the asset juice to do anything major. Paul Millsap is, I guess we could say he's the most likely one to get moved since he's on a minimum salary and they definitely don't want to waive him because of their tax bill. It's between him and Javon Carter for me. The last thing I'll say though, and this is only tangentially related to the trade deadline, like there's a chance this team doesn't have Kyrie Irving or James Harden next year is something I thought about because Kyrie can be a free agent. And if the New York State vaccine mandates don't change, I think the Nets would keep him just because what are you going to do? Like, could you capitalize on a sign and trade? Maybe. But what if he just wants to leave? And then it would still be a sign and trade because there's so few teams, I guess, that'll have cap space this summer. I think the James Harden Philly noise is real. I buy into that 100%. I wouldn't want to put up with, this isn't Kevin Durant's fault, but his injury risk and then just the Kyrie Irving extracurricular bullshit. So it'd be wild if they gave up all that equity for James Harden for a year and a half of James Harden, only to then turn that into Ben Simmons or whatever, and you've lost Kyrie Irving in the process as well. I don't know what you turn him into. They are living proof because I think when these teams form these types of teams, you're like they're gonna dominate the East of the league for X amount of years. Man, title windows are fickle and they are short, and anything, as we're seeing now with the Nets, can happen. To where, as of right now, and this would be the best part to put a bow on it, and definitely could comment on their offseason. Would you even say there's Milwaukee for me in the East? I think I'm at the point where Miami is the team that I would predict to come out of the East after them. Are you still putting Brooklyn in that? Like they're like Kyrie was going to be available every other game. James Harden dealing with another hamstring injury is still, he is better than he was at the beginning of the year, but the stretch where he was dominating is kind of past. And then there's the Kevin Durant MCL stuff. He'll be fine when he comes back, but could something else crop up? I just don't trust the makeup of this team.
No, I think what I'd say is their ceiling is still if everything broke right, which it hasn't at any point in the time this team has been together, then yeah, their ceiling is they could beat anybody. Sure, they could absolutely come out of the East, but like what the chances of them hitting that ceiling are lower than ever. So no, I think it's Milwaukee. I think it's Miami. I mean, given everything,
Toronto.
doesn't Cleveland deserve? I have to say it. Doesn't Cleveland deserve to be in Philly? Like, I mean, Embiid is a wrecking ball right now. I think you could talk yourself into 14. I mean, I don't know that. What about if you're just betting on like the median outcome for this season? Why isn't Atlanta? Like, let's put Atlanta in there. I don't know. There's all these Chicago. We didn't even talk about the Bulls. So
What a
yeah, there's
segue. They're next.
no, you forgot your alphabet. We got to do the Hornets.
Oh yeah, I apologize. Hornets defense has been better of late, but please
I'm
finish.
the alphabet police on this. Yeah, no, yeah. So I'm with you. I guess if we're gonna go with Javon Carter just to put a pin in this one.
Yeah, it's him, or I guess are we overlooking Millsap here? Because it's like
Who wants Millsap? I
he's
mean,
at
I guess
he's at 1.7. So there were teams that were Chicago could use some like backup five juice. Maybe Brooklyn doesn't want to help a conference rival. Golden State, if Draymond Green isn't getting any healthier, do they create do they create a roster spot and then just acquire him, or do they not want to pay that tax bill? Do they pay someone to take on Belita because the Nets don't want to take on Belita and then they get Millsap? Let's just go with, I don't know. It's Javon Carter or Paul Millsap. We just want to go with Javon Carter because he makes a little bit more.
yeah.
Maybe they get back.
Why not?
Yeah.
That's a consensus.